Welcome to the Mindful Healers podcast with
Dr. Jessie Mahoney
and Dr. Ni-Cheng Liang.
We are here to help you learn to pause and be present, awaken your breath, and harness the ripple effects of mindfulness for radiant health.
We get you. We know you. We are you.
We have both been successful on the surface, yet struggling underneath. We have both had cluttered brains, been overwhelmed, and exhausted.
We're healers who have found solutions and want to share them with you.
Join us here to discover a better way.
Welcome to today's episode, How I Did It, a roadmap for transitioning well. This is the first of a few question and answer podcasts that are coming by request from some listeners who have attended recent Sagrada retreats. And I was asked to share the answers to these questions so that all of you can learn a little bit more about how and why I built Pause and Presence, how I handle change and self-doubt. So if you want to hear why I got a coach in the first place, why I pivoted to do this work, what I wanted to do at Pause and Presence that I thought I couldn't do in my own institution, stay on and hear more. I will also share my journey with trusting intuition and what having your own back means, and how I grew the courage to do what I did and what I do still ongoing when I encountered self-doubt. I will end sharing a little bit about what I would tell my younger self. So if that is of interest to you, please stay on and listen. The intention of this episode is to share how I did it and offer others an opportunity to see a roadmap of transitioning well and what transitioning well entails and requires. Three big takeaways from today's episode are: number one, being a product of your product is essential to being a great coach, a yoga teacher, and a retreat leader. Number two, allow the road ahead of you to speak louder than the road behind you. And number three, stories can help you as much as they can hurt you. So as is our new tradition, we will take a moment here to pause to arrive. Always practicing what we preach here at the Mindful Healers podcast. Take a moment to arrive wherever you are. If it's safe, close your eyes and come back to your breath. If you need to keep your eyes open, please do, and come back to your breath. Just noticing the breath coming in through your nose and out through your mouth. If it's safe for you to do so, you can bring a hand to heart and just notice your heart space and how you feel in this moment. Taking a moment to settle into your body, wherever it might be, in the car, in a chair, walking, letting your mind, body, and spirit land in the same spot to arrive. And perhaps setting an intention to settle in and take a listen. As I begin, I wanted to encourage you to listen to episode 3. Episode 3 of the Mindful Healers podcast, which was approximately 3 years ago, this January. I shared my story as of January 2021. I am intentionally not listening to that episode prior to recording this because I'm well aware that everything in life is a story. There are very few facts and most things are stories. And those of you who coach with me will likely remember this. And so when you have been through coaching, you know that a story is what you choose or what you decide, and it's how you choose to see something. Without coaching, your unmanaged brain defaults to seeing things. And so my story in 2021, which is entitled My Story, and my story today are both post-coaching stories. But stories change over time. Stories are merely a narrative about one's experience. And so telling good stories and crafting helpful narratives is powerful. I encourage all of you, as you think about your life, to tell beautiful stories and narratives about your life. Why not? It's much more helpful in moving forward positively and authentically than telling stories about things you regret or mistakes you made. What if they're all learning? Stories actually help you do things that you want to do that you might otherwise struggle to do. And stories absolutely helped me do this. So you can tell a story that supports a journey, that helps you grow courage, that helps you stand tall, or you can tell a story that grows lack of belief, that makes you feel disempowered or afraid or anxious. Many of the things that I'm going to touch upon today are also topics of other podcasts. Many whole episodes are devoted to some of the concepts. And so I encourage you, as you hear me mention them today, to go back and listen to some of those old podcasts. Today, as I'm recording this episode, is actually the 3rd birthday of the Mindful Healers podcast. And therefore, I will reflect on some of the journey of the podcast as well. I will also share some things today that I consider the hidden journey and the discoveries and the secrets that I have discovered along the way. Many people come to work with me around potential transitions. Most people don't even know exactly where they want to go or what they want to do. They just know they're ready for a change. And I think hearing other people's stories is very valuable. In fact, I often get asked by many people, why do I share so much? Why am I so vulnerable and honest and transparent? And I do this because sharing helps others. I do this because vulnerability is valuable. I share my story to offer hope. I share it as a lighthouse or a beacon of light for others trying to find their way through this journey we call life. I aspire to share in a way that I like to refer to as elegant vulnerability, by which I mean using vulnerability to offer value to others, not non-elegant vulnerability, which would be perhaps vomiting up messiness. Sharing also helps me. It gives me insight into my journey, and it helps me help others. Finally, sharing is the opposite of not sharing. When we don't share, that also sends a message. Not sharing implies a bit of fear that someone might steal your secrets or that someone might judge you. It also comes from a place of scarcity. And so I am sharing with intention in this podcast today. And I also want to thank the Sagrada participant who asked me to share my story. She asked her questions in search of clarity and in search of her own desire to make the world, and especially medicine, where she continues to practice, a better place for all. So this podcast is dedicated to her and is intended to honor her journey ahead. So the first question that I was asked to share the answer to is, why did I get a coach? And my answer would be, I really needed one. At the time I hired my first coach, I was chief of physician health and wellness. I was site chief of pediatrics. I had 3 teenagers, and my dear husband had developed significant depression. And what I found was that I could not find the resources and support within the system that I needed. My experience with psychiatry was quite traumatic in trying to support my husband. And for all the best intentions of colleagues, we are not good at supporting our colleagues going through struggles with loved ones who are struggling with mental health. It is much more clear how to support someone whose partner is struggling with cancer, for example. But there tends to be a lot of shame around mental health, and I could not find the support that I needed. I also reached out for coaching at this time because I knew that I wanted to change. I knew that I was ready for more. I felt stagnant, felt like I wasn't performing to my potential and that I had so much more to give, but I wasn't sure how one would go about doing that. I had a practice I loved. I had lots of leadership roles. And by all measures, I should have been happy, satisfied, content, and feeling like I had arrived. And yet I wasn't. And so I reached out hoping to get some clarity. I also knew that I needed what I like to call a life raft. And coaching is absolutely a life raft. It is a tool of support to help you be buoyant. Coaching helps you find relief, it connects you with inspiration, and it helps you get unstuck. It's, in my mind, life changing. And despite all of the other modalities that I had tried in my 17, 18 years of physician wellness, nothing else came close to the shifts in perspective and tools that coaching offer. So I often get asked why I pivoted and why I ultimately decided to transition to coaching rather than continuing in my role in medicine. And essentially, I couldn't not pivot. I am an innovator at heart. I am a creative person, and I very much wanted to have a broader impact than I could have in my pediatric practice. I felt very complete in my pediatric journey. And full disclosure, I actually didn't plan to pivot completely. I pivoted not knowing right before COVID happened. And I had plans to continue working as a per diem in pediatrics and potentially even opening a small niche practice with a friend. And COVID happened. And what ended, as you all know, physicians suffered greatly during COVID and needed a lot of support. And so, given my background in physician wellness and my coach training and my mindfulness training, I was perfectly positioned to make a big impact. I was also asked, what was it that I wanted to do at Pause and Presence that I couldn't do in my institution? And this question is a fantastic question because I told myself the story that there were things that I couldn't do if I stayed in my institution. And in answering this question 4 years later with a bit more perspective, I realized that I told myself this story to give myself permission to do what I really wanted to do, to help grow my courage. And I honestly had no idea whether I could or couldn't have done certain things within my institution. Now, I did ask and didn't get the immediate yes answer as to all the things. And as many of you know, I'm a woman with big ideas and big plans. And so my vision was likely many years ahead of where my institution was at that moment. So I could have been patient and I could have played the long game. And honestly, I don't know all of what could or could not have happened. I knew I wanted to make big change. And so this story that I couldn't do it within my institution, which I'll put within quotes, gave me permission to do what I really wanted to do and was meant to do. And so this is an example of stories helping you rather than hurting you. Stories can gift you belief. And that is a really valuable way in which we can use them for our brain rather than against our brain. And the other thing I'll say in retrospect is that I absolutely could not have done what I'm doing today within an institution. Doing what I do today has tremendous nimbleness and tremendous possibility for innovation and pivoting quickly and creating exactly what I know works best for my colleagues in terms of helping them move through burnout, transition to things in life that will make them happy, and ways to help them find contentment and satisfaction and fulfillment very often exactly where they are by changing their thoughts and stories about it. The next question I was asked, have I always trusted my intuition? And I would say, yes, I have always trusted my intuition. And I clearly had this intuitive sense that I was ready for something many years before I transitioned. I knew I was meant for more. I knew that I had something big I wanted to bring to the world that went beyond a pediatric exam room and beyond the clinic where I was site chief. It went beyond being a physician health and wellness leader within my institution. What I didn't know is exactly how or what. And a reminder here that for those of you looking ahead for transitions, when you are doing something that hasn't been done before, you only get to know the how afterwards. Those of us who were trained in medicine, we knew the how. We checked med school, residency, fellowship, attending job, et cetera. There's a whole outline of how to do it. When you go into entrepreneurship and or pivot into doing something that has not been done before, you only get to know the how afterwards. So the important thing about this question, which actually really helped me when I was asked this, is that while I trusted my intuition, I didn't act on it until I had been well coached. So before coaching, I had an intuition, and I very much relied on intuition even in my exam room. I have a very good sense of when children were sick, when something was going on, even if you couldn't pick it up initially. It was actually one of my superpowers as a physician. But what I didn't know how to do outside of medicine was how to move forward. If you have this intuition, what do you do? And so I started by looking outside myself for the answers. Where was the role that would make me happy? And as many of you know, I went through multiple leadership roles and positions, which all served me incredibly well in what I do now. I coach many, many leaders. But I didn't find what I was looking for outside of myself. And what I really needed to do was trust my intuition and act upon it, to be brave enough to act upon it, to grow the courage. And because what I was looking for and what my intuition was directing me towards was something that did not exist. I had to create it myself. And that took tremendous courage and bravery. It's like jumping into a cold pool. And because we're into transparency here, when I resigned, I was absolutely terrified. But I knew that I was also terrified of disappointing myself and not trying. And we very often find ourselves, as we're facing transitions, feeling that one direction is uncomfortable and a new direction is uncomfortable. And we often choose the discomfort that we know rather than the discomfort that we don't know. And yet, if you're going to sit in discomfort, which outcome might you hope for? And one of the things that I have learned is that at all costs, don't disappoint yourself. No matter what you do, if you are a people pleaser, you still might disappoint others. And so the one person you can be sure not to disappoint is yourself by following your intuition and actually acting upon it. So I was also asked, how did I grow the courage to make the pivot, to create Pause and Presence, and to follow my dream of supporting colleagues farther, wider in the ways that I knew would be most helpful. And the first way I grew courage was to borrow belief from my children and my husband, who believed in me much more than I did. As they said, whatever you set your mind to, Mom, you could do that. And I was stunned when they said that. And yet I found it very powerful to borrow their belief. Very often there are people in the world who believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And as a coach, I very often share my belief with clients because I, of course, believe in them. Everyone I work with is incredibly competent, smart, resourced, and just incredibly amazing humans. And very often we worry and don't believe in ourselves as much as we could and should. And so having someone else loan you their belief in you is really helpful. And I have had people actually return the belief and say, I don't need it anymore. I have the belief in myself. But it is something that I offer others and very much helped me grow courage in myself. I also told myself another helpful story that helped me grow the courage. And I told myself that I was resourced. resourced in that I had tremendous experience in the wellness arena. I had tremendous wisdom, having been a leader in pediatrics, in wellness, and in my institution for many years. I had tremendous skills. I had coach training, mindfulness training. I had hosted retreats for my institution, and my dad had done retreats in the past, so I even knew how to do those. I also was resourced with tremendous stubbornness and determination, which sometimes doesn't help me as much, but here it was tremendously helpful. And I was also resourced with the knowledge of the importance of having my own back. And I wanted to speak a bit about what does it mean to have your own back? I get asked this a lot. And what it means is that once you make a decision, you have your own back. You don't second guess it. You don't jump into self-doubt, and you don't look to others for answers. So when I had resigned and when COVID showed up, I decided that I was going to be the answer and be the solution for exactly what my colleagues who were tremendously struggling and suffering needed. I knew that I had the knowledge, the skills, and the training, and so I was going to step up and I was going to make this work. If I had sat sitting here saying, oh my gosh, what have I done? Is this the worst time? Why did I do this? How come I didn't know? That would have gotten in the way of building what everyone needed in that moment. And so trusting yourself and having your own back and not allowing self-doubt to rule and regret to rule. I always say regret is optional, is a very powerful resource as you are trying to grow courage. And I want to offer that even with courage, the transition was very much like jumping into a freezing cold pool. And it was for a while, but it is not anymore. And one of the reasons is that I always say what you practice grows. What I practice now is doing new all the time. And so while I had worked in the same institution for almost over 20 years, because I did my residency there as well, I wasn't doing new things all the time. I wasn't building a business. I wasn't learning tech. I wasn't doing podcasts. I wasn't teaching yoga. I wasn't creating things out of nothing. Now I'm doing that all day, every day. And so I don't find it to feel like a cold pool. It doesn't require that same courage. It requires trust and steadiness and buoyancy. So you can, when you practice something, get much more comfortable with it. And that is how I grew the courage to do this. And when self-doubt occurs, this was another question I was asked, what do I do? This question is key because in medicine and as high achieving women, we are trained to doubt ourselves. It's one of the tools we use to push ourselves and push ourselves. So self-doubt is deeply rooted into our nervous system and is a habit that is very hard to undo. So what I did to support myself well around self-doubt is I continue to get coached. I have a great coach who I love, who is a great fit for me. And I continue to support myself with that. I also support myself with the same tools that I offer to my clients. I support myself with mindfulness. I support myself with breathing. I support myself with a lot of regular yoga. I support myself with nature. As I mentioned, I support myself with coaching. I even support myself sometimes with retreats with some of my original yoga teachers and with people whose work I often use as resources for my own clients. I will go and do retreats with them so that I then am able to share that. Another way of supporting myself. I was also asked what I would tell my younger self, what advice I would give my younger self. And this question made me laugh because my first initial reaction was I wouldn't consult my younger self because in the coaching world, we're very much taught the past is the past and it isn't helpful. I would suggest consulting with your future self if you want to make a change, because that looking backwards tells you, I should have done this sooner. What would you have done differently? What could you have done better? And when you come from this place of strength that I did the best I could, I made the best decision I could in the moment with the information I had, you are having your own back and you are supporting yourself. But if I were to have a chat with my younger self, I would tell her to listen to herself and trust herself and believe in herself. And if she was falling short on belief, borrow someone else's belief, all things that I have mentioned. I would also tell her to support herself well, that she is worthy of support and a tremendous investment. So, as we near the end of this podcast today, I'm going to share a few of the pearls from my journey. 1, stay future focused. 2, make decisions from love. What would love do is one of the most useful questions I have asked along the way and continues to serve me today. Number 3, trust yourself. Who better to trust than yourself? And number 4, support yourself well. So I invite you, if this podcast has resonated and you are interested in making a change and wanting to transition well, there is no actual roadmap. The roadmap, if anything, involves the advice that I've given here in this podcast. But most of all, I encourage you to join me for Transition Well, my small group coaching program that starts a few weeks from now. I offer it every 6 months. We meet twice a month as a small group, and you can add in discounted one-on-one coaching if you wish to support yourself well. Transition Well is an amazing program. This will be the 4th round of it. And people have done all kinds of amazing things, started out amazing careers, retired from jobs, and figured out what's next. People have left jobs and switched to different jobs. People have gotten divorced and become empty nesters. So many different ways to transition. In fact, life is all a transition. And many of the pearls that I shared today in this episode serve you well, no matter the transition ahead. So I would love to have any of you join me for this super special, unique program. I know of nothing else out there that offers the same level of support and a community of people, of women, usually women in healthcare, usually all women physicians. But if you are not one of those, please reach out and I'm happy to discuss whether it might be a fit for you. Join us. I would love to meet you there. I will put the links in the show notes. Thank you all so much for listening today. Please stay on after the sound of the singing bowl for our mindful moment. A reminder that our mindful moment is our weekly offering to you. It is an opportunity to practice mindfulness with us to support yourself well. You don't need to go to Headspace or Calm. You can join Ni Chang or I or one of our esteemed guests for a short, simple practice. We offer a variety of opportunities to enjoy a few moments of calm and peace, to settle your nervous system, and to come back into your body and enjoy. May you all have a beautiful week ahead, and may you enjoy the pearls of wisdom shared today as you look ahead at transitions that you may or may not be encountering in 2024.
As always, if you want to declutter your mind, be more present, and start truly living your one wild and precious life, come find us at the mindfulhealerspodcast.com.
Work with one of us.
Work with both of us.
Start or uplevel your mindfulness practice.
Discover how mindful coaching can change your life.
Or even better, do both as part of our Mindful Healers programs and retreats. You can find links to find out more about our programs and join our communities at themindfulhealerspodcast.com.
Reach out and get started on your journey to a life better lived today.
The content of this podcast is not meant to be medical or life advice. If you choose to participate in our mindful moments, please do so safely.
Welcome to today's mindful moment. Taking a moment to get comfortable, to bring mind, body, and spirit into the same spot. To notice how safe and secure you are, no matter what may be swirling around you. If it's safe for you to do so, close your eyes and bring a hand to heart. And if it's not safe, opt out. And with those hands on your heart, hand on heart, notice your heart space underneath you. Recognizing and remembering that you have a heart. Taking a moment to notice its wishes and desires. Taking a moment to allow them to be seen. Nothing that you see you have to act upon. Just letting what is there be seen, be known, be acknowledged. Very often we have dreams and desires, a gnawing feeling that there's something else that we would like to do in this life, and we ignore it. Giving yourself the gift of noticing, allowing it to be seen. Noticing your heart underneath your hands, acknowledging that you are a human with a human heart. Considering for a moment this idea of allowing the road ahead of you to speak louder than the road behind you. This is key to transitioning well. Looking forward rather than looking back. If you're going to do something you've never done before, you don't need to do what you've done in the past. You'll need to do something different. Growing courage comes from letting the road ahead of you speak louder than the road behind you. If you allowed the road ahead of you to speak louder than the road behind you, how would you feel? What would you notice? What would you do? Coming back to your breath and letting those thoughts percolate in. If the road ahead of you spoke louder than the road behind you, what would you do? What would you do more of? What would you do less of? What dreams would you follow? And if inklings of self-doubt pop up, connecting with how resourced you are, all the skills and wisdom and experience that you'll bring with you to whatever is ahead of you on that road. Of course, you don't know the how. Of course, you don't know the what. If you plan to do something you've never done before, it's all unfamiliar. Unfamiliar does not mean that something is wrong. It just means it's unfamiliar. Breathing in acceptance and comfort. Breathing out the self-doubt, worry, anxiety, and stress. Breathing in trust and belief in yourself. Breathing out fear. Breathing in the beauty of that road ahead of you, the hopes, the desires, what's possible. And breathing out the limitations and old heavy stories of the road behind you. Noticing how you feel. Allowing trust to circulate, allowing belief to circulate, allowing possibility and hope of the road ahead to circulate. And noticing any twinges of worry, concern, self-doubt, and just let them be. Knowing that with support, with the breath, with creativity, with curiosity, with mindfulness, you've figured out so many things in your life. You'll figure out whatever is next too. Breathing in through your nose, letting the breath spread everywhere, letting yourself enjoy it fully. Breathing out. Thank you all so much for practicing with me today. May you all let the road ahead speak louder than the road behind you. May you all enjoy peace. May you all enjoy hope. May you all grow courage and belief in yourself. Have a beautiful week and a beautiful year ahead. Namaste.